Well, hello and welcome back to my channel. I am super excited to have you here today. Listen, we just wrapped our Arise series, and wherever you are tuning into this, I want to say thank you for catching the replay. This topic is something that is so necessary right now. Like, there are so many people that are down on the men. Like they're just putting a lot of weight on men, and rightfully so. The man was created first, so he has a little more responsibility than the woman does. And so, what I would like to do is call out the king in each one of you men. And how I am going to serve, what qualifies me is I have four boys. I have a husband first, and I have four boys, right? And so I know what it's like to be around men. I have brothers, I have a father, and I watch the mental health crises that went on within the men in my life. I also have men that are like friends and brothers to me that I have been able to serve alongside because I am a certified life coach, and just the struggles that men go through. I think it's time to put a voice to it, but also give language to the men so they know what they're dealing with. Also, we are going to call them up higher. We are calling you out, man. I'm calling you out. So this is not another bashing men video. I don't do that. I do not tolerate women bashing men around me. Don't even say nothing in your head bad about your man or your son, your husband, your friend. Like, don't do that around me. Let me tell you why. Because how you behave towards men is a reflection on what you believe about God. Okay. And so me and my husband, we don't argue. Doesn't mean I don't challenge him, right? But I don't scream at my husband. I don't call him names. Not because I just think it's not a good thing to do, but because I actually fear the Lord. And when you fear God, you take his sons just as serious as you want the sons to take you, right? I want the Lord to be glorified in my life. And that starts with how I move as a woman. And I am not a woman without a man. Okay. Whoa, man. Hello. One man, female. Hello. So, um, I want to welcome you guys in. Um, this is a series for men stepping into emotional maturity, spiritual leadership, and real kingdom responsibility. But listen, ladies, you are not excluded. Okay, you thought you was off the hook, but you're not. Because when you understand what a real king looks like, you'll stop giving time to counterfeits. Okay. I have had my fair share of counterfeits, ladies, and this is how I was able to discern the difference between a kingdom man that God sent from his kingdom and a counterfeit that the enemy sent from his kingdom. Okay, because there's two kingdoms at war here. There's altar versus altar at war here. Okay, so it's so important for you to know the difference between a kingdom of God man, a covenant man, a covenant of God man versus a counterfeit from Satan. Okay. So each week I'm also going to give you discernment keys, ladies, a way to recognize whether that man you're texting is a builder or a burden. Okay. So this week's key discernment is a real king is already working his garden before you show up. A counterfeit waits for you to bring purpose into his chaos. So you don't want to get with a man that has not been tilling the grounds of his garden, operating in his purpose, and learning how to steward. You don't want a man that does that. Okay. That's your key discernment in differentiating between a king and a counterfeit. Okay. A true king and a counterfeit. All right. So let's get right into our teaching for today. Okay. So today's topic is crowned with responsibility, God's design, God's original design for men. Okay, men. So buckle up. We're going to talk through some scriptures today that's really going to help you. Okay. And if my camera gets a little blurry, y'all just let your girl know. But crowned with responsibility, We're going to start with Genesis 2, verse 7 through 15. One of the things I've learned over the years and through digital mentors is the law of first mention. When it is first mentioned in the Bible, that is the original design and context for it. So, men, you guys were formed and created from the dust, right? That's not to say that you guys are dusty. But what that is saying is you guys were, God took his time creating you out of something that was substance, that had substance. Okay. Okay. The camera was tripping, so I had to fix it. But I hope you guys can see me well. Um, but yes, so God formed you all from something that was a substance like dust. Okay. So don't think of yourself as less than just because what you were formed out of. Okay. Now, from there, God then took man, made him from the dust, and then he breathed life into his nostrils. Okay. And so Adam was formed out of the dust and placed into the garden. So, point number one, after you were created, man, you were given the assignment of stewardship first over creation. How huge of a role is that? To be given an assignment to steward creation, the first things ever created, you were given to steward first. That's a pretty powerful and important role. So, because this is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, I want you to understand that God did not make you on accident. He formed you and functioned you. He formed you for a function, for a purpose. So, you're valuable. You are not just someone that is only here to work. God entrusted an entire creation that he just made. He entrusted you with it. So, don't take yourself lightly, okay? After you were given the position in the garden, after you were given the title of steward or gardener, um, you were then given a task of naming names, naming the animals, and seeing what you would pull from your intellect at that time. To create, right? Which is naming the animals what they're named today. Okay. And God was waiting to see, because it goes on to say in verses below, God was waiting to see what Adam would call them, right? So God is sitting in here this whole time. Although you're stewarding it, he is still serving alongside of you, making sure that what you're doing is kosher. Okay. He's going to see because he's watching you. He was watching Adam from the beginning of time. And so before you can call yourself a king, you must first be a steward and a servant. Okay. So that means, guys, y'all got to get to work. God has placed you in the garden somewhere. You need to get to work. It's time to get to work. And before there was marriage, before there was a ministry, and before there was money, there was a man placed in position. You're placed in position. You see, you are not random. You were created with function and purpose in mind. You're not here by accident. You were formed with a significant purpose. I want to keep reiterating this because I want you to understand, because I think a lot of men sometimes don't feel like they're important, but that's not the truth. God didn't make you futile. He made you fully capable, and it's time for you to embrace it. It's time for you to embrace it. It's time for you to stop acting below your means. Being someone that is a not a good husband, not a good father, you know, essaying women and abusing women, those are not things that God called you. Those are futile things. Those are things that are beneath a true king. Because a true king embraces his role as a steward. And what does a steward do? What does a steward do? They provide and they protect. Now, we hear a lot of hubbub around what it means to provide and protect for your household and those that are leaning on your leadership. And a lot of people deem it as just finances and making sure that you jump in front of a bullet. But the truth is, it's a lot more than just providing finances and physical protection. Okay. So it was function before females came into the picture. Okay. Because who was you providing and protecting? The garden. Everything that was in the garden, the animals, the trees, the fruit, the rivers, you were providing and protecting. You were tending to the garden. Okay. You were placed in Eden to tend to it. To tend actually means to keep. So, as much as we say that women are responsible for keeping their homes, so are men. The men are called to tend to the garden as well. So when Adam was placed in the garden to tend to it before Eve even came on the scene, he was meant to assist just as much as she was in the tending of the garden. Okay. Now, how do you know if you're someone that is providing and protecting as a king? Okay. Because you weren't called a husband first, you were a steward, a protector, and a resource for the source. When God created you, he created you as a resource, which is another version of him in this realm of the earth. Okay. And so when you were put here to provide and protect, that means you were providing stability and security. Okay. Now, when the woman came into the picture, the stability and security looks different. Okay, so Genesis 2:15 says, "And the Lord God took the man and put him in the garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it." That's stewardship. That is stewardship and servanthood. Okay, because to dress means to serve. And it also in the Hebrew definition means all bad, which is to serve God, which is service. So men, you should be doing some form of work way before the woman comes. Okay. To keep it also means watchmen, to guard, to observe. So, yes, women are watchmen and keepers at home, but the men are also keepers of the garden. What is the garden? That is the internal homes of everyone that God has put under your leadership. So you have to make sure that you are providing emotional security, financial security, and physical security. When people come around you, can they let their guards down around you? Or do they have to walk on eggshells? Are they afraid that at any point in time you are going to flip out and be a crazy person? Okay. And so now, if you don't know your function, you'll frustrate your future. Simple, simple, simple. If you don't know what you are here to do, how to move and how to be, because to function is how you are. Let's look up function really quickly. This wasn't in my notes, but we need to hone in on this. So function is an activity or purpose natural to or intended for a person or a thing, right? And so some can say it's your purpose. Absolutely, right? We were put on this earth with the purpose of worshiping God in everything. If you don't know your purpose, start there because that is your purpose, and how you function in that purpose is what you do with your life. So a lot of people say, I'm looking for my purpose. I'm looking for my purpose. But the truth is, the purpose is to worship God, bring souls into the kingdom, and live for King Jesus. Okay. Just to sum it up, how we go about executing that purpose, because he said, let us make man in our own image. Let's give them dominion and let's make them fruitful and for them to be fruitful and multiply. Okay. So having dominion means to reign over something, area, jurisdiction. God has given us jurisdiction, okay, down here, and he has commanded us to multiply. So if you are not multiplying men with your life in the garden, with the animals, with the fruits and vegetables, what make you think God's gonna want to send a woman your way? It was when Adam was operating, functioning in his role and responsibility as tender, God, her gardener rather, or tender of the garden, which is a gardener. You see, you can't seek connection before you have sought out commission. When you seek connection of a woman, especially, and you've neglected your commission, that woman is gonna run you raggedy. That woman is gonna turn you every way but loose. Have you all doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Have you broke as a joke. Have you confused and out of position, because that's what happened to Adam. He knew what God had commanded him to do. He knew what the Lord said his role and functionality was. So this man had direct access to God and he still fumbled the ball. Why? Because when that woman came on the scene, he must have forgot what he was supposed to be doing. Because as he was in the garden and she was in the garden with him, and I've talked about Eve's role in other videos, but I'll talk more about that in another video because the significance of the influence of a woman has to be studied. It has to be studied. She literally changed the trajectory of mankind with one decision. And he changed it with one acceptance because he accepted the decision that she made. And so, men, you are going to be held responsible for how your life plays out. You can say, oh, that woman, my wife ain't do this. My wife ain't. What did you do? Because you was never told to stop tending to the garden just because the woman came on the scene. He sent the woman to help you. So before you try to go and connect with the woman, you need to make sure you are connected with the commission. Connect with the commission that God has given you. And if you don't know, you need a 3 to 7 day, however long fast and pray and ask God for clarity. Because it's hard to foster connection, especially in a marriage, when you are not clear. When your vision is murky and it's unclear, you will find yourself being a counterfeit or getting a counterfeit, aka a Jezebel, that's going to run you raggedy. Okay. And so let's move on. So section number 3, point number 3 is your covering isn't it, you are never called to control. You are called to commission. You are called to cover. So covering doesn't mean, it's not synonymous with control. Okay. And so what is the headship? So men, you were called to headship, and this is where we get into Ephesians 5. Okay, that was my introduction. So this is where we get into Ephesians 5. So Ephesians 5, go with me there. 5:22 says, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. So ladies, if you're listening to your pastor over your husband, you're out of order. If you're listening to your boss over your husband, you're out of order. If you're listening to your dad over your husband, you're out of order. So long as your husband is in the proper hierarchy that I'm getting ready to share right here. Okay. It says in Ephesians 5:23, for the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the savior of the body. Okay. And it says, therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything, because the head of every woman is the husband. The head of every wife is the husband. The head of that husband is Christ. At any point in time, that husband steps out of fellowship or from up under headship of the Lord, ladies, I'm here to tell you, don't be like Ananias and Sapphira. Sapphira lost her life because her headship stepped from up under the covering of Christ, and he began to direct her to do the same thing. As unto the Lord means, how is my position in my response to the Lord in this marriage, right? Am I honoring my husband as unto the Lord? Is my husband leading me in a way that is going to help me to honor my husband in the Lord? Okay. So long as your husband is not abusive to you, okay, abuse comes in many forms, physically especially, Get out of harm's way, ladies. We're not promoting you stay like Ike and Tina. We're not doing it. I mean, definitely fight back. Don't just be a rag doll. Get you some lessons. But don't pick a counterfeit. And maybe he started off well and he went down a path, right? That's something you're going to have to take up to the Father as well. Get to higher grounds, get to safety, and take that up with the Father. Only God can tell you what to do in your marriage. This is why you have to submit to the Lord first. In the as he he is the final authority. He's the final authority. My light just went out, y'all. That's the popping sound you heard. But he's the final authority. Okay, all is well. So God is the final authority. The Bible is the final authority. So what the Bible says goes. Okay. And so for men, headship isn't about hierarchy, it's about humility and honor. Okay. You can't be around here trying to boss people around and you're not even leading your life right with God. Like, come on. Come on. And so headship also is not about dominance. Okay. It's about dominion. When you're operating in dominion as a man, it is easy for a woman to want to submit unto you. So you won't have many debacles with your wife when you are leading with love, when you're leading with humility and honor and integrity. Okay? What you do when nobody's watching says a lot about who you are as a man. And it also says, and it's a telltale sign, ladies, who he follows. Whether he's following his flesh, whether he's following social media, whether he's following other men, it'll tell you who he is following. Okay. And so being the head is about covering, not capping. Don't cap your wife. Don't shut her down. Don't command her. Commission her. Commissioning your wife is what is what Adam was doing with Eve. Okay. She knew about what they weren't supposed to eat and do in the garden, but she still allowed the serpent to convince her otherwise. And so she was commissioned just like he was commissioned. And so for men, you guys have to lead from the commission. Okay. You have to give clear, concise, and complete directives and commissioning so that the women don't feel like you're capping them, you're bottlenecking them, you're shutting them down. You don't want to listen to them. Now, I know Eve messed it up for a lot of people. But as this woman as is serving and is a prudent woman, because that was a gift from the Lord, okay, according to Proverbs 12:4, a prudent wife is a crown for her king, a crown for her husband. And an excellent wife was something that God gifted to this type of man. Proverbs 31 9 talks about your judgment, opening your mouth into and judging righteously. We talked about that in the Arise series. The first 9 verses was King Lemuel's mother teaching him, King Solomon, they think it's King Solomon, but King Lemuel, she was teaching him a prophecy that he needed to know about the type of king he should be and the type of wife he will get as a result of being this kind of king. So, men, if your wife is not responding to you the way you would like for them to respond to you, you need to look at your kingship. Okay? You weren't crowned to control, you were crowned to carry. Now let's reflect. Let's take some time to just think through everything that we talked about tonight. This is just the overview because we are getting ready to go into the full unpacking of this each week in each part, okay? But before we get there, I want to leave you with this. Headship without humility becomes abuse. Real kings protect. Real kings protect. I love how Miles Monroe puts it. He says, when you don't understand the value or the purpose of a thing, abuse is inevitable. How many of you men have been abusing yourselves? Addictions to pornography, addictions to substances, overeating, being out of shape. How are you abusing yourself? Do you talk bad to yourself in your mind? Are you giving yourself over to a seducing spirit? Are you depressed and anxious because you don't have sight, you don't have clarity? Are you looking for trust and safety in the thighs of a woman? You're abusing yourself. And then you are turning around and putting that abuse off on the women or whoever got entrusted to your leadership, whether you're a husband or whether you're an employer or you're a father. You have to recognize and understand what it means to be a king. And it's not enough just to say, oh, I'm a king. Ladies, it's not enough for him to do kingly things, but his internal garden is really a junkyard. It's not enough to just externally look the part, but when it comes time, when the chips are down and when it's time to get going, you folding like a doggone lawn chair. A real king does not abuse his authority, and a real queen knows how to submit unto his authority. Okay. So don't get it twisted, man. There's a lot of women out here that know how to submit, but what they ain't doing is submitting to foolishness. Yeah, we're not doing that. So I want you to ask yourself, are you tending to the garden that God has already set you in? So is it that business idea he's giving you? Is it your job? Is it your role as a husband or as a father? What garden of your life have you been tending to? And are you tending to it? Okay. Next, are you honoring your formation or frustrated by your function? Is it upsetting you that that you got so much responsibility? In my opinion, we both have equal responsibility. It just looks different. The function and formality of it is different. So there's no gender wars here. There's no, oh, women are better. No feminism over here. Okay. We are feminine. We are not feminist. Okay. But our men are masculine. They're healthy masculine men that knows how to balance leadership and love and also how to balance this up here because the mind is your battlefield. It's the war for your mind. If the enemy can get you up here, he can just have access to your entire world. And so now, here's something I want you to do. I want you to write out 3 areas of your life that God has placed under your stewardship. It could be spiritually, emotionally, and relationally. Because what you're going to do is you're going to start to unpack where you are. Okay. You need to unpack what you're doing, making sure that you are actually stewarding it right. And if you have not been stewarding it right, asking God to help you identify one area where you need to realign this week. So look in 3 areas and then asking God to identify one area where you can realign it this week. Something you can work on, one area you can work on this week. Okay. And so now I want to invite you back for part 2. That's going to be next week. Okay. Part 2, where you're going to learn more what it means to love your woman like Christ loved the church. Now, this is getting into headship and into your position as a husband. Um, and you don't have to be married to start operating in this position. Okay. And then I want you guys to go to my website, www.ashleymsturgis.com. And I want you to get on my email list so you can get the journal prompts and get the devotions, or share it with other men so that you guys can start to align and become the men of God that God has called you to be. Because I think it's so beautiful to see men arise and become kings. It's nothing like a woman that can see the potential, but it's never actualized. But then when the man starts to see his potential and actually starts to walk and work towards that position, it's something beautiful about that. It's something empowering about that. And I know there's a lot of spaces that, excuse me, wants to dishonor men. And this is not one of them. This is a space where my camera's like glitching tonight. Okay. This is a space where you can become. You are allowed to make mistakes. You are allowed to glow up too. The glow up is not just for women, it's for men too. And so I'm gonna also have my husband join me for one of a couple of the sessions because I think it's so important to just, hear from other men. Women, we do our best in how we help raise men. Like I'm raising sons, so I'm trying to balance not making them too soft, but also making them strong. And this is why you need both father and mother in the home so that they can have a healthy life in duality, being strong, but also being sensitive to the needs of others and to their position in those that are trusting their leadership. Okay. And so thank you so much. And I want you to I encourage you to follow for daily inspiration over on my social media platforms. It's Ashley M. Sturgis everywhere. I'm on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Just look me up, Ashley M. Sturgis. Um, and I look forward to seeing you guys in part two. Um, don't miss it. Okay. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Okay. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for joining, and I'll talk to you all again soon.